The history of Panama is a fascinating tale of exploration, colonization, trade, and independence, shaping the country into a crucial hub for global commerce. Its geographical position as the narrowest point between the Atlantic and Pacific Oceans has made it a strategic location throughout history, from the early indigenous civilizations to the Spanish conquest and the eventual construction of the world-famous Panama Canal. The land that is now Panama was once home to thriving indigenous communities, including the Cueva and Chibchan-speaking groups, long before European explorers arrived. When the Spanish set foot in Panama in the early 16th century, they quickly recognized its importance as a transit route, using it to transport gold and silver from South America back to Spain. The Spanish colonization led to the rise of settlements like Panama City, which became a center for trade and wealth, but also attracted pirates and invaders who sought to control its riches. Over time, Panama became a battleground for various colonial powers, with conflicts between Spain, England, and local groups shaping its destiny. As centuries passed, Panama played a critical role in the independence movements of Latin America, separating from Spain in 1821 and later from Colombia in 1903, becoming an independent nation with the support of the United States. The construction of the Panama Canal in the early 20th century further cemented the country's significance, transforming it into one of the most vital trade routes in the world. Panama has since evolved into a modern economic hub, balancing its rich historical heritage with rapid development and global influence. In this video, we will explore the detailed history of Panama, from its early indigenous roots to its rise as a global trade center, diving into key events that have shaped the nation. Join us as we uncover the story of Panama, a land of historical significance and strategic importance. Be sure to watch until the end to gain a full understanding of this remarkable country's past and present. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more historical insights into the world's most fascinating places. 1. The Indigenous Era and Spanish Conquest. Early indigenous civilizations of Panama. Long before European explorers set foot on Panamanian soil, the land was inhabited by various indigenous groups that thrived for thousands of years. Among the most prominent were the Cueva and Chibchan-speaking tribes, who lived in small settlements and developed sophisticated agricultural and trade networks. They cultivated maize, cassava, and other crops, using advanced farming techniques suited to Panama's tropical climate. These groups also engaged in long-distance trade with neighboring regions, exchanging goods like gold, ceramics, and textiles with cultures from Central and South America. When Spanish explorers arrived in the 16th century, they encountered well-established communities with unique traditions and governance systems. However, the arrival of the Europeans marked the beginning of drastic changes, as diseases and conflicts devastated the indigenous populations, leading to the near disappearance of the Cueva people. 2. The arrival of the Spanish and the discovery of the Pacific. The history of Panama changed forever in 1501 when Spanish explorer Rodrigo de Bastidas became the first European to set eyes on its shores. Soon after, Vasco Núñez de Balboa arrived in 1513 and made a groundbreaking discovery that would alter the course of global trade. He became the first European to cross the Isthmus of Panama and see the Pacific Ocean. This momentous event solidified Panama's importance as a key passage between the Atlantic and Pacific, attracting more Spanish expeditions. Realizing the land's strategic potential, Spain quickly established colonies in the region, founding settlements that would serve as critical trade routes for transporting South American wealth back to Europe. The Spanish conquest led to the rapid expansion of colonial control, but it also resulted in the forced labor and suffering of the indigenous people, who were used to build infrastructure and extract resources for the empire. 3. The founding of Panama City and the rise of trade. In 1519, Panama City was founded by Spanish conquistador Pedro Arias de Villa, becoming the first European city on the Pacific coast of the Americas. Its location made it a vital hub for Spanish trade, serving as a transit point for gold and silver mined in Peru. The city grew rapidly, attracting merchants, settlers, and soldiers eager to take advantage of its wealth. Over time, Panama City became the center of Spanish colonial administration in the region, controlling key shipping routes and overseeing commerce between Spain and its American territories. However, its immense wealth also made it a target for pirates, leading to attacks and conflicts that would shape its future. Despite these challenges, the city thrived as an essential part of the Spanish Empire's economic network, solidifying Panama's role in global trade. 4. The pirate invasions and the destruction of Old Panama as Panama City became one of the wealthiest colonial settlements in the Americas. It attracted the attention of pirates who sought to plunder its riches. The most notorious attack occurred in 1671 when the infamous English pirate Henry Morgan led a massive assault on the city. Morgan's forces, consisting of hundreds of men, overpowered Spanish defenses, looted treasures, and set fire to the city, leaving it in ruins. The devastation was so extensive that the Spanish decided to rebuild the city in a new location a few kilometers away, creating what is now modern-day Panama City. The attack on Panama underscored the vulnerability of Spain's American holdings, prompting stronger fortifications across its territories. This period of conflict highlighted the strategic and economic significance of Panama, as control over its trade routes meant immense power and influence. 5. Spanish rule and the challenges of colonial administration. During the colonial period, Spain faced numerous challenges in governing Panama due to its geographical position, and the constant threats from rival European powers and indigenous uprisings. Managing the flow of wealth through the region required extensive military presence and strong administrative control, which often led to tensions between Spanish officials and local settlers. The Spanish crown implemented strict regulations on trade, limiting Panama's ability to engage in commerce with non-Spanish territories. This economic restriction frustrated many Panamanians, fueling resentment toward colonial rule. Over time, dissatisfaction grew as locals sought greater autonomy and economic freedom. These tensions set the stage for future independence movements, as Panamanians increasingly questioned their place within the Spanish Empire and explored the possibility of self-governance. Here is the continuation of the script, maintaining the exact structure and length requirements. Chapter 2. Independence, Conflicts, and the Road to Sovereignty. 6. The decline of Spanish rule and Panama's first independence attempt. By the late 18th century, the Spanish Empire was facing significant challenges due to widespread economic struggles, growing political corruption, and a series of military defeats that weakened its grip on its vast overseas territories. As Spain's influence diminished, revolutionary movements inspired by the Enlightenment and the successful independence struggles in the United States and France began to spread across Latin America, including Panama. Many Panamanian elites, who had long been frustrated by Spanish economic restrictions and heavy taxation, started questioning their loyalty to the Spanish crown, seeking greater autonomy and control over their trade routes. In 1821, as independence movements surged throughout the region, Panama saw an opportunity to break free from colonial rule. Encouraged by the success of Simón Bolívar's campaigns in South America, local leaders in Panama City declared independence from Spain on November 28, 1821, marking a pivotal moment in the country's history. However, rather than establishing itself as a completely sovereign nation, Panama made the strategic decision to join the newly formed Republic of Gran Colombia, which included present-day Colombia, Ecuador, and Venezuela. This choice was driven by practical considerations, as Panama lacked a strong military force and feared possible retaliation from Spain or other colonial powers. By aligning itself with Gran Colombia, Panama hoped to ensure its security while still gaining some degree of self-governance. Although this transition brought temporary stability, it was not the final chapter in Panama's quest for full sovereignty, as tensions between Panama and the central government in Bogotá would soon emerge. 7. Panama under Gran Colombia and internal struggles. After Panama's decision to become part of Gran Colombia, many Panamanians believed they would enjoy greater autonomy and economic prosperity, given the region's importance as a trade route connecting the Atlantic and Pacific Oceans. However, reality proved to be quite different, as Panama quickly found itself marginalized within the new republic. The central government in Bogotá often overlooked Panama's interests, focusing instead on internal political struggles and power dynamics among Colombia, Ecuador, and Venezuela. Panama, despite its economic potential, was not given the level of political representation it had hoped for, leading to frustration among its leaders and merchants. Many Panamanians felt that their economic prosperity was being stifled by policies that prioritized Colombia's internal affairs rather than Panama's strategic importance as a transit hub. This dissatisfaction led to several attempts at secession, with the first major separatist movement occurring in 1831, when Panama briefly declared independence before being reintegrated into Colombia under political pressure. Throughout the 19th century, Panama remained caught in a cycle of rebellion and forced reintegration, with various uprisings and failed independence movements emerging at different points. Meanwhile, external forces, particularly the growing influence of the United States and European powers, began playing an increasingly prominent role in Panama's future. As the century progressed, Panama's economic and political landscape continued to evolve, laying the groundwork for more significant changes to come. 8. The California Gold Rush and the Panama Railroad. The mid-19th century brought dramatic changes to Panama's economy and global significance due to the California Gold Rush of 1848, which triggered a massive migration of fortune seekers traveling to the western United States in search of gold. Many of these travelers sought a quicker route to California, avoiding the treacherous overland journey across North America or the long and perilous voyage around the southern tip of South America. As a result, Panama became a crucial transit point for thousands of prospectors and merchants who needed to cross the isthmus efficiently. This surge in traffic led to the construction of the Panama Railroad, a groundbreaking infrastructure project completed in 1855, which provided a fast and reliable means of crossing the narrow land bridge between the Atlantic and Pacific Oceans. The railroad significantly boosted Panama's economy, creating new business opportunities, increasing trade, and attracting foreign investments. However, the increased foreign presence, particularly that of the United States, also intensified tensions over control of Panama's resources. While the railroad brought prosperity to some sectors of Panamanian society, it also underscored the growing influence of external powers in the region, which many Panamanians viewed as a threat to their sovereignty. The economic benefits of the railroad were undeniable, but it also set the stage for future conflicts over foreign control of Panama's most valuable assets. 9. Continued revolts and the impact of U.S. intervention. As the 19th century progressed, Panama's desire for independence intensified, but multiple attempts to separate from Colombia were met with strong resistance from Bogotá. The central government was determined to maintain its hold over Panama, given the region's economic importance, and repeatedly suppressed uprisings and separatist movements. Meanwhile, Colombia itself was experiencing political instability, with internal conflicts between liberal and conservative factions creating chaos throughout the republic. This instability further alienated Panamanians, who felt that their interests were being sacrificed in the larger struggles of the Colombian government. Recognizing Panama's strategic importance, the United States began playing a more direct role in its affairs, particularly as discussions about constructing a canal across the isthmus gained momentum. The idea of a transoceanic canal had been proposed as early as the 16th century, but by the late 19th century, the United States saw it as a critical project for expanding global trade and military mobility. In 1903, after Colombia rejected a treaty that would have granted the U.S. permission to build the canal, the United States actively supported a revolutionary movement in Panama. With American warships stationed offshore to prevent Colombian forces from intervening, Panama successfully declared its independence on November 3, 1903. This event marked the beginning of a new era for Panama, but it also cemented U.S. involvement in the country's political and economic affairs for the decades to come. 10. The treaty with the United States and the construction of the canal. Following its independence, Panama moved quickly to secure international recognition and economic support, leading to the signing of the Hay-Bunau-Varilla Treaty with the United States in November 1903. The treaty granted the United States control over the Panama Canal Zone in exchange for financial compensation and military protection, effectively giving the U.S. authority over a vast portion of Panama's territory. With the agreement in place, the construction of the Panama Canal, one of the most ambitious engineering projects in history, began under American supervision. The canal's construction was an enormous undertaking, requiring massive amounts of labor, advanced technology, and extensive disease control efforts, as tropical diseases such as malaria and yellow fever posed significant threats to workers. After years of effort, the canal was finally completed and officially opened on August 15, 1914, revolutionizing global trade by providing a direct maritime route between the Atlantic and Pacific Oceans. The canal drastically reduced the time and cost of transporting goods, making Panama one of the most strategically valuable locations in the world. However, despite its economic benefits, the presence of the United States in the canal zone created tensions among Panamanians, many of whom felt that their national sovereignty had been compromised by foreign control. Protests and nationalist movements calling for the return of the canal to Panamanian hands grew throughout the 20th century, setting the stage for future conflicts and negotiations over control of the waterway. For decades, Panama would continue to struggle with issues related to the canal, leading to widespread demands for full sovereignty over its territory, which would not be realized until the end of the century. The construction of the canal had undeniably transformed Panama into a global trade hub, but it had also tied the nation's fate to a complex and often contentious relationship with the United States. Chapter 3. The Fight for Sovereignty in Modern Panama. 11. The rise of nationalism and growing anti-U.S. sentiment. Throughout the 20th century, Panamanian nationalism grew steadily as citizens became increasingly frustrated with the extensive control that the United States exercised over the Panama Canal Zone, a crucial territory that many felt should belong entirely to Panama. The initial treaty that allowed the U.S. to build and operate the canal had given it complete authority over the zone, preventing Panamanians from having any direct involvement in its management, security, or economic benefits, which many considered an unjust arrangement. Over time, as the global landscape changed and decolonization movements gained momentum, many Panamanians, particularly students, activists, and political leaders, began demanding revisions to the treaty that would grant them sovereignty over their own land. Protests and riots became more frequent, with Panamanians expressing their growing resentment through strikes, demonstrations, and nationalist campaigns that called for an end to foreign domination. The most significant and violent uprising occurred on January 9, 1964, when a group of Panamanian students attempted to raise their national flag within the canal zone, an act meant to assert their rightful presence in the disputed territory but one that was met with severe resistance from U.S. troops. The confrontation quickly escalated into violent clashes, resulting in multiple deaths and injuries, and sparking widespread outrage throughout Panama, leading to diplomatic tensions between the two nations. This tragic event, now commemorated as Martyrs' Day, became a defining moment in Panama's history, strengthening national unity and intensifying the call for sovereignty, ultimately putting enormous pressure on both the Panamanian and U.S. governments to renegotiate the terms of their long-standing agreement. 12. The Torrijos-Carter Treaties and the path to canal ownership. Recognizing that the continued tensions over the Panama Canal were creating international controversy, and that the rise of Panamanian nationalism could no longer be ignored, the United States eventually agreed to engage in diplomatic negotiations to address the issue of sovereignty. By the 1970s, Panamanian leader General Omar Torrijos had emerged as a strong advocate for reclaiming control over the canal, making it his primary political mission to end U.S. dominance over the region and restore Panama's rightful authority. After years of negotiations, a historic agreement was finally reached in 1977 when Torrijos and U.S. President Jimmy Carter signed the Torrijos-Carter Treaties, a groundbreaking accord that outlined a gradual process for transferring control of the canal from the United States to Panama. The agreement established a clear timeline, stipulating that while the U.S. would continue to manage the canal for the time being, full ownership and authority would be handed over to Panama by December 31, 1999. Allowing the country to finally govern one of its most vital economic and strategic assets. This treaty was celebrated as a major diplomatic victory for Panama, as it marked a turning point in its long fight for national pride and independence, symbolizing a major shift in power dynamics between the two nations. While the treaties ensured a peaceful transition and provided Panama with the opportunity to prepare for full canal management, they also laid the foundation for improved U.S.-Panama relations by guaranteeing cooperation in maintaining the canal's global economic significance. The signing of these treaties was a defining moment in Panama's modern history, proving that through persistent struggle, national unity, and strategic diplomacy, a small nation could reclaim its sovereignty from a global superpower. 13. The Noriega regime and U.S. military intervention. As Panama moved forward with its path to full sovereignty over the canal, the 1980s brought new political challenges, particularly under the rule of General Manuel Noriega, a controversial military leader whose regime would later lead to one of the most dramatic interventions in Panama's history. Noriega, who had initially worked closely with the U.S. as an ally in intelligence operations, gradually became a figure of international controversy due to his increasing involvement in corruption, drug trafficking, and human rights violations, leading to widespread unrest within the country. His authoritarian rule, characterized by electoral fraud, violent suppression of opposition, and the use of military force to maintain power, sparked protests and drew condemnation from both Panamanian citizens and the international community. As tensions between Noriega and the U.S. escalated, especially after his links to drug cartels became widely known, the United States imposed sanctions and eventually took drastic measures to remove him from power. In December 1989, the situation reached a breaking point when the U.S. launched Operation Just Cause, a massive military invasion involving thousands of American troops who were deployed to overthrow Noriega, restore democracy, and stabilize the country's political situation. The invasion resulted in heavy casualties, widespread destruction, and chaotic urban warfare, leading to a period of turmoil before Noriega was eventually captured and extradited to the United States, where he was tried and sentenced to prison. The operation, while officially justified as an effort to protect democracy and end dictatorship, was widely criticized for its impact on civilians and raised questions about foreign intervention in Latin America. However, with Noriega's removal, Panama entered a new era of democratic governance, setting the stage for political and economic reforms that would shape its modern trajectory. 14. Panama's economic boom and canal expansion. With the return of democracy and the formal transfer of the Panama Canal to Panamanian control in 1999, the country experienced a significant economic transformation that reshaped its global role. The newfound sovereignty over the canal allowed Panama to take full advantage of its strategic geographical position, turning the waterway into one of the most valuable trade assets in the world and generating billions of dollars in annual revenue. Under Panamanian management, the canal was modernized and optimized to handle increasing maritime traffic, significantly boosting the country's economy and strengthening its position in global trade. Recognizing the growing demands of international shipping, Panama embarked on a major canal expansion project, which was completed in 2016, allowing the passage of larger vessels, increasing efficiency, and further cementing its role as a key transit hub. Alongside the canal's success, Panama also developed into a financial and business center, attracting foreign investment in sectors such as banking, logistics, real estate, and tourism. Despite these economic achievements, the country still faced challenges, including income inequality, political corruption, and social disparities, which required ongoing reforms to ensure that prosperity was shared across all levels of society. Nevertheless, Panama's remarkable growth following its full independence demonstrated its ability to thrive as a sovereign nation and capitalize on its unique geographic advantages. 15. Panama's role in global trade and its future prospects. Today, Panama stands as one of the most strategically significant countries in global commerce, playing an essential role in international trade and maritime logistics due to the continued success of the Panama Canal. With billions of dollars flowing through its economy each year, Panama has become a major financial hub, attracting multinational corporations, investment firms, and entrepreneurs looking to capitalize on its trade-friendly environment. The country has also positioned itself as a regional leader in banking, technology, and tourism, leveraging its economic strengths to drive development and innovation. While Panama still faces challenges, including governance issues and the need for infrastructure improvements, its future remains promising as it continues to expand its global reach. The nation's resilience, from its colonial struggles to its modern economic boom, is a testament to its ability to adapt, overcome adversity, and assert its place on the world stage. As Panama moves forward, its leadership in international trade, its commitment to sustainable development, and its strategic vision for the future will determine its continued success as a global economic powerhouse. Panama's history is a story of exploration, conquest, rebellion, and resilience, shaping it into the global powerhouse it is today. From its indigenous roots to the construction of the Panama Canal and its fight for sovereignty, every chapter of its history has contributed to its modern identity. The country has overcome colonial rule, foreign intervention, and political instability to become a leader in global trade and economic growth. As Panama looks to the future, it continues to honor its past while embracing innovation and development. If you enjoyed this in-depth exploration of Panama's history, be sure to like and subscribe for more historical content. Let us know in the comments what historical topic you'd like us to cover next, and we'll see you in the next video.